This is Dalene Carlson, 23 years old, full of life and dreams, captured on camera standing outside a bar. At that moment, neither she nor her loved ones knew these would be her final images. Just hours later, Dalene vanished without a trace, only to be found dead in a cornfield, her body no longer intact. The autopsy revealed she had been attacked multiple times with a weapon and was found naked. Stay with us to uncover the chilling truth behind this harrowing disappearance. In the summer of 2011, 23-year-old Dalene Carlson left her small hometown in Idaho and moved to Stockton, California. Dalene was active, friendly, and loved the outdoors. She enjoyed everything from fishing and snowboarding to long walks with her dog, Maddie. She relocated to live with her aunt and cousin, hoping to begin a new chapter. Her goal was clear: to pursue a career in child development. After working for years in different restaurants and saving up, she had enrolled at San Joaquin Delta College. With just a few months left before classes started, Dalene was busy settling in and learning about her new surroundings. Her cousin Cecily often acted as her guide, but on the 6th of August, 2011, Dalene went out alone. Cecily wasn't feeling well, but Dalene didn't want to stay home. She had already started meeting new people and felt confident going to familiar places on her own. One of her favorite spots in town was Finnegan's Bar and Grill, where she had gone a few times already. That evening, she got dressed and headed out. Her Aunt Maggie reminded her before she left that she needed to be home no later than 3 a.m. Dalene acknowledged the warning and left the house on her own. But when 3 a.m. passed, Maggie began to worry. She waited a bit longer, but by 3:30 and then 4 o'clock, there was still no sign of Dalene. Maggie had stayed up late, checking her phone and sending texts, hoping Dalene might have stayed with a friend. She tried to rest but couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The silence was out of character for Dalene. She always kept in touch, especially if plans changed. As the sun began to rise, the concern among her family only deepened. Maggie called around to Dalene's friends and eventually contacted 911 to report her missing. Even though it was technically too soon to file an official report, police took note of the situation. Dalene had only been in Stockton for a short time, but now she was suddenly gone without a trace. Friends and family searched the neighborhood, retracing her steps. The day passed from warm daylight to evening chill, yet no sign of her turned up. The unease grew heavier, and it was clear that something was seriously wrong. The next morning, police began their investigation into Dalene's sudden disappearance. One key detail was a photo taken by her cousin Cecily just before Dalene had gone out. She had asked for a picture to check her outfit. Her long, dark brown hair was loose, and she wore a black and white vest top paired with ripped blue denim jeans. Investigators decided to retrace her steps, starting with where she had planned to go that night: Finnegan's Bar and Grill. Dalene was supposed to go there with Cecily, but ended up going alone. At Finnegan's, one of the managers confirmed that Dalene had been there that night. He remembered her clearly since she had visited multiple times before. He noted that she had spent most of the evening standing outside the bar, but nothing about her behavior raised concern. She had gotten a ride from a friend, and once inside, had run into her on and off boyfriend, 25-year-old Jacob Evangelisti. He acknowledged that their relationship had been rocky lately, and he had purposely arrived before she did that night. Jacob told investigators that 4 days prior, they had a serious argument where things escalated physically. He had grabbed Dalene's arm as she tried to walk away. Tensions had also been stirred up by rumors that Dalene had been talking to a mutual friend named James Cousins. That night at the bar, although they were with the same group of friends, they kept their distance from each other for the most part. According to Jacob, Dalene officially ended things with him that night, and he was visibly upset. Despite being emotional, Jacob claimed he respected her decision and did not follow her when she left the bar. He said he didn't know who, if anyone, she left with. Police cross-checked this information with employees at Finnegan's, and Jacob's version of events seemed to match what they observed. Although Jacob's story had so far matched witness accounts, police still considered both him and James Cousins as persons of interest. Security footage from the bar showed Dalene stepping outside to smoke before heading back inside around 12:50 a.m. The place was still fairly busy, and at one point, a man approached her, briefly putting his arm around her before following her down a corridor. This man was identified as 25-year-old Jason Gily, a friend who shared a house with James' cousins. Dalene soon returned outside and engaged in a visibly animated conversation with Jacob. Her gestures and movement matched what he had told investigators about them having a heated discussion. After that, Dalene went inside again, while Jacob stayed outside with a friend finishing a cigarette. At 3 a.m., the bar closed and everyone had left, but neither Dalene nor Jacob were seen on the exit footage, leaving their exact departure times unknown. Jacob later told police that Dalene had messaged him, saying she was heading to a party at a friend's house. Afterward, he received about 12 calls from her. During one of those calls, he noticed a man's voice in the background. Dalene had told him she was at Jason's house drinking. Jason Gily, the same man caught on camera at Finnegan's with her, shared his home with his mother, grandmother, and James' cousins. In one text, Dalene had asked Jacob if she could come over later, to which he agreed, but after that, she went silent. He fell asleep and woke up to no further contact. Police then turned to Jason and James for interviews. James was direct. He admitted he and Dalene had been in contact, but were not dating. Moreover, he had a solid alibi and had been out of town, something confirmed by multiple witnesses. Jason, however, offered a more uncertain account. He said he and Dalene had separated at the bar and claimed he had offered her a ride home, but left around 1 a.m. due to an emergency text from his grandmother about his son being sick. But this conflicted with Jacob's statement that Dalene said she was at Jason's house drinking. Jason's grandmother also reported he didn't arrive home until about 1:30 a.m., casting doubt on his version of events. Jason Gily, still unable to offer helpful details, redirected the focus back to Jacob, pointing out the argument he had witnessed between him and Dalene. He described it as intense and unpleasant. Unfortunately, that left investigators with no clearer direction. Meanwhile, the case began to draw more public attention. News outlets reported the increasing efforts to locate 23-year-old Dalene Carlson, last seen on the 7th of August. Police confirmed that 3 men had spoken to them early on, acknowledging contact with her the night she vanished. Back at home, Dalene's family clung to hope. Her cousins distributed flyers featuring her photo and urged the public to come forward. She had moved from Idaho to start over in Stockton, live with her relatives, and attend Delta College. Her disappearance shook the family, especially her Aunt Maggie, who had been waiting for her to return that morning. Though everyone desperately hoped for a safe outcome, the passage of time only made things seem more bleak. Despite the uncertainty, the community rallied. Dalene's loved ones scraped together $1,000 to add to the existing Crime Stoppers reward. A local semi-pro football team offered to hold a fundraiser to support the search. Volunteers handed out flyers, combed the area, and tried to remain optimistic. But the psychological toll was immense. Friends admitted that the mental strain of endlessly imagining worst-case scenarios, trying to piece together fragments of possibility, was utterly exhausting. Police, having run out of viable leads at Finnegan's, decided to expand their reach. Officers canvassed nearby businesses, requesting any security footage from the night Dalene went missing. After multiple setbacks, they finally caught a break. A 24-hour convenience store had captured something that might provide a crucial lead. It wasn't much, but it was enough to inject some momentum back into the investigation, which had until then been stalling. At around 1:30 a.m., surveillance footage from a Food for Less store captured Dalene and a man purchasing alcohol. That man turned out to be Jason Gily, and the same individual who had told investigators he last saw Dalene at Finnegan's and hadn't seen her since. This footage directly contradicted his original statement, prompting detectives to bring him in for a second interview. They asked him again what time he had gotten home, and he stuck to his original claim of 1:30 a.m. But when they showed him the video, his story started to shift. Under pressure, Jason hesitated, then admitted that he had in fact left the bar with Dalene to go to the store. He claimed they returned to Finnegan's afterward, where he dropped her off. Detectives, sensing inconsistencies, continued to press him. Eventually, Jason grew visibly emotional. When asked if they had been intimate, he finally confessed they had gone to his house, had consensual sex, and then she became upset afterward, possibly regretting what happened. He said Dalene decided to leave, so she walked out. Jason continued, saying he followed her in his car, picked her up again, and then drove her 40 miles south, claiming she asked to be dropped off at a random location. He said he did so, stopped for gas afterward, and went home. Jason insisted he had lied to protect himself and felt terrible about his actions, especially knowing he was likely the last person to see her alive. Police, becoming more suspicious, pushed him to reveal the truth, directly asking him where they would find Dalene's body. It was a critical moment, but instead of answering, Jason shut down and asked for a lawyer. With limited options, investigators arrested 25-year-old Jason Gily on charges of kidnapping and unlawful detainment of Dalene Carlson. However, they still lacked the evidence to charge him with murder. Jason denied harming her, and his mother remained adamant about his innocence. Later, Jason's family claimed that Dalene had been at their home but left alive on Sunday morning. The conflicting accounts only deepened the mystery and suspicion. Despite being the only remaining suspect in Dalene's disappearance, Jason Gily was released from custody. Prosecutors stated that the evidence simply wasn't strong enough to charge him with kidnapping. One of them explained that no matter how strong a gut feeling may be, it's still the law that requires evidence to prosecute. Without a clear and provable link, they had no choice. Jason emerged from jail, claiming that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, insisting he wasn't a bad person and hadn't done anything wrong. Speaking to the media, Jason recounted his version of events. He said that Dalene had been at his home in the early hours of Sunday morning but left on her own. He emphasized how difficult the last few days had been for him, criticizing the authorities for arresting him before confirming the facts. He added that he wouldn't harm himself or anyone else, and claimed that people who knew him would vouch for that. According to him, the police had interrogated not only him, but also his mother and grandmother, causing further distress to his family. However, surveillance footage taken at a nearby 7-Eleven the next morning contradicted his attempts to appear uninvolved. Around 11 a.m., Jason was seen topping up his gas tank. But more tellingly, enhanced footage revealed that he had been wiping his arms and shirt, both of which appeared to be stained with dirt. The implication was clear. Something didn't align with the story he was publicly telling. Investigators believed it was time to widen the search and focus on the areas around his home. Attention quickly shifted to the Calaveras River. Known locally as a dumping ground for various items, it was muddy, densely overgrown, and located only a few blocks away from Jason's house. Every new clue seemed to circle right back to Jason, and authorities weren't giving up. Jason Gily, age 25, had already been arrested earlier in the week on charges of false imprisonment and kidnapping. Although he was released again by Wednesday afternoon, the police made it clear that he remained a person of interest in Dalene Carlson's disappearance. Newly released investigative documents revealed that authorities believed Jason had been lying from the very beginning. His initial statement claimed that he hadn't been with Dalene the night she went missing. However, conflicting accounts began to emerge. Jacob Evangelista, Dalene's former boyfriend, told police that around 5 a.m. on Sunday, he received a message from her phone stating that she was at Jason's house drinking but would soon be heading to his place. That message was the last known contact Jacob had with Dalene. Under pressure, Jason revised his version of events. He admitted that Dalene had gone to his house, where the two of them had sex and then argued. Afterward, he claimed he gave her a ride and dropped her off somewhere. According to Jason, they had driven on the crosstown freeway before heading southbound on Highway 99 for approximately 40 minutes. He alleged that he eventually let her out at an unspecified location. But investigators were increasingly skeptical of this account, especially as new evidence came to light. For the first time, it was revealed that a message from Dalene's phone was sent late Sunday morning, well after she was supposedly dropped off. At 11:25 a.m., Jason's roommate, James, received a text from Dalene's phone saying she was somewhere on Country Club and that her phone battery was dying. But when asked, James admitted he wasn't sure whether Dalene had actually sent it. The message had simply come from her number. As authorities pointed out, a text message tells you where it came from but not who was physically holding the device. It was entirely possible that someone else had her phone by that point and was sending texts to throw them off. 2 months after Dalene Carlson went missing, her body was finally found by a farm worker in a cornfield. The remains were badly decomposed. She was discovered naked, her body lying alone in the rural field. The autopsy results revealed that she had been attacked multiple times from behind with a weapon. 1 bullet had entered the back of her head, and 2 more struck her back. Her injuries suggested she may have been on her knees when killed, executed in cold blood while facing away. Close to the remains, a black bra was located, the only piece of clothing found at the time. The condition and position of her body told a story of violence, fear, and final moments that were likely filled with terror. A few days later, her jeans were discovered 6 miles from where her body had been. The distance between the items suggested an effort to delay discovery and hinder the investigation, but the truth was beginning to emerge. Police began uncovering significant discrepancies in Jason Gily's account. Despite his grandmother's initial statements supporting his alibi, she later admitted to lying in order to protect him. Investigators also received information from someone close to Jason, claiming that he possessed a weapon. Forensic analysis confirmed that the marks found near Dalene's body matched exactly with the weapon he owned. Cell tower data placed both Jason and Dalene in the same location where her remains were eventually discovered. Further analysis strongly suggested Jason had continued using Dalene's phone to send deceptive messages after she had already been killed, attempting to create confusion around her timeline and whereabouts. Dalene's aunt spoke out, heartbroken, saying she couldn't comprehend how anyone could do something so terrible to someone like Dalene, someone who simply wanted to be kind, who sought connection and friendship. She described her niece as a social magnet full of warmth and life, and suspected Jason had made advances that Dalene rejected, leading to his violent outburst. The prosecution later stated that all available evidence pointed to Jason luring Dalene to his home after stopping for alcohol, likely under the pretense of offering her a ride. Upon arriving there, they believe he raped her, retrieved his weapon, and forced her back into his vehicle. He then drove her to the cornfield and executed her. Messages between the two revealed their relationship had been more intense than Jason initially claimed. In just 3 days, Jason Gily had sent over 200 text messages to Dalene Carlson. The final texts came on the very day she disappeared. These messages had grown increasingly graphic, aggressive, and sexual in nature. He repeatedly demanded explicit photographs and even asked for her underwear. Dalene had tried to brush him off with humor or ignored him completely, but his obsession was clear. Investigators concluded that Jason's fixation had escalated, and when he didn't get what he wanted, he acted out violently. Authorities determined that the most likely motive for Dalene's murder was to silence her after sexually assaulting her. The prosecution made it clear. He raped her and killed her to prevent her from going to the police. They pointed out that he had no reason to carry a weapon if his only intention was to give her a ride home. They believed that by the time he brought her to that cornfield, he had already decided she wouldn't be leaving alive. According to state records, Jason forced Dalene to undress and kneel with her hands behind her head before attacking her. The evidence stacked against him was overwhelming. More than 1,000 pages documenting witness interviews, messages, GPS data, ballistic tests, and crime scene photos, all gathered before even diving into the phone logs. Jason Gily was formally charged with kidnapping, rape, and first-degree murder. The hearings began, and a judge was tasked with determining whether the case would move forward to trial. Despite the nature of the charges, rape, kidnapping, and murder with special circumstances, the prosecution announced they would not be seeking the death penalty. Although Jason's crimes qualified him for capital punishment under California law, recent legal obstacles to executions had made the state reluctant to pursue that sentence. Instead, they pushed for life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, citing the calculated and premeditated nature of the crime. Jason Gily's former best friend, Robert Cousin, made a bold appearance in court, fully condemning the man he had once trusted like family. When the media storm broke out, it was Robert who offered Jason a place to stay, shielding him from the public eye and believing his claims of innocence. He, like many others, defended Jason because of his firm denial. But as more details surfaced, Robert's faith shattered. He expressed total disgust at what Jason had done, emphasizing that Dalene, just 23 years old, had never deserved such a cruel fate. Robert admitted he came to court because he wanted to see justice unfold, step by step. As a father of a young daughter, he felt no sympathy for Jason or anyone who supported him. He described their 20-year friendship as completely severed. His dismay grew when he recalled how relaxed and unconcerned Jason had acted during those days after Dalene's disappearance. Calm and composed, Jason never showed signs of distress or guilt. That, Robert said, was the most disturbing part. When he confronted Jason directly, asking if he had anything to do with Dalene's disappearance, Jason denied any involvement. But Robert could no longer ignore the inconsistencies and the lies. His demeanor, the lies piling up, and the growing mountain of forensic and circumstantial evidence painted a dark picture. Even though the murder weapon hadn't been recovered, evidence tied Jason to the scene, and prosecutors stated they could still charge him for personal use of a firearm. Investigators believed there was enough scientific and testimonial data to prove that Dalene had been raped. The prosecution was preparing to present their case at the preliminary hearing to determine if the evidence could move to trial. When asked whether he thought anyone else was involved, Robert's voice was firm. He believed Jason acted alone. And when questioned whether he still supported his former friend, Robert didn't hesitate. After all the facts had emerged, there was no defending Jason. Not now, not ever. Once Jason Gily was transferred from protective custody into the general prison population, he was attacked by one of Dalene's own relatives. It had been just over 2 years since her disappearance, and the long-awaited trial finally began. Jason, after offering several contradictory accounts, settled on a final version. He claimed he left the bar with Dalene, bought alcohol, then took her back to his house, where they had consensual sex. He said she grew angry afterward, demanded to be driven home, and insulted him in the car. He insisted he dropped her off in Modesto before returning home, denying any further involvement. As closing arguments unfolded, emotions ran high in the courtroom. The defense tried to cast doubt on the prosecution's case, arguing the cell tower data was too broad and that no direct evidence tied Jason to the crimes. They claimed Jason only lied to hide his sexual encounter with Dalene due to fear of social repercussions. Despite this, the prosecution presented a compelling timeline supported by witness statements, forensic details, and behavioral inconsistencies. Jason's fate was left in the hands of the jury, who now had to decide whether circumstantial evidence was enough. Ultimately, Jason Gily was convicted of kidnapping and murder. The charge of rape ended in a mistrial. He received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. To this day, Jason has never admitted to what truly happened that night. Dalene Carlson had left Idaho full of dreams, determined to start a new chapter. She had planned a future in child development, saved diligently, and made all the right moves to begin her new life. That promise was stolen in the darkest way imaginable. Her final moments remain a haunting reminder of how fragile life can be. Dalene's Aunt Maggie said healing didn't come from forgetting, but from holding on to the moments that mattered. Dalene had been full of warmth, light, and ambition. What her family and friends shared with her, even for a short time, was deeply cherished. Though justice was served, the pain of loss lingers. If this story moved you, honor Dalene's memory by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and watching more stories like hers. Let her name be remembered, and may her voice echo through ours.